shown here to the audience?
Okay. What I showed today in my keynote was an introduction to my history, which has been a strange story of being born into a family with disabled people, learning from that, experimenting with the situation of trying to empower them, and also then how it moved from an art situation where the creativity of matching a content to someone's desires to express themselves through emotion, working with biofeedback sensors that can track brain waves or muscle tension or galvanic skin response, the signals that come from the body, into a content which can be games. And I really hope that what I did present here today came across for people to understand that when you have data from a human, you can do very much with that data by mapping it to content that can fit that human, whether they maybe like sounds, maybe they want to make music, maybe they don't like sound, they don't want to make music, but they want to paint through movement, maybe they want to control a robot through movement, or maybe they want to play games. What type of game do they want to play? So very much about not just thinking about the technology that's involved, but also thinking about how you create the space around using the technology, and how you think then of capturing the data, being able to analyze that data and evaluate the meaningfulness of that data for that person by working with, perhaps if it's a disabled person, the medical team that's looking at the treatment or the well-being of that person.
Do you think that games should be more used in healthcare?
I think they should be used more. They are being used. There's been a big adoption. There's been some companies in America that pioneered some of this stuff as well, but at the same time as me, and they were very successful as well, working with lots of green screen, mapping from using camera tracking, whereas I was using cameras but other sensors as well. So by using games, you have elements that sometimes you don't have with the creative side, in so much as competition between different players. So you can have a person who has a health situation and a friend who has a health situation. That can be similar or different. If they have a similar profile of liking music, for example, they can create music together, or they can play a game and they can have a competition together. And it depends what you want or what those people want. So from the game perspective, when you're making a game, it's good to think about having an authoring tool so that you can manipulate the game for it to be the type of game you want, but also scalable to fit the limitations of a person. Because we just about have traditional movement, capacity to move and control our limbs, but maybe people don't have that. So when you have a game that's perhaps too sensitive for that person's movement, that's not going to be motivating that person. You need to tailor the game to that person's capabilities and working from there to stimulate that person. So maybe you can increment the way you're capturing to make it a little bit harder for him, over time, so that that's a progress towards a learning, towards a physical improvement. Do you understand? So the game side is so important, because nowadays you've got the speed of the computers, you've got the speed of the graphic cards to give good feedback. There's so much potential. Really so much potential.
Serious games or?
I think what I'm seeing is happening now is within colleges where they train therapists, they're adopting games. What we're seeing is that when I started doing this, it was very new and unique, and perhaps too much of a challenge for people, because in those days you didn't have the situation where you have a mother who's training to be a therapist and her son might be playing some games that she sees him moving in a way of playing the game that triggers her to think, okay, we can use this. Or she has the chance to work after he's gone to bed to get a bit dirty with the game, to understand, okay, so even if she can't program, it can be a commercial game, but lots of commercial games like the iToy when it came out, the Wii, you have these exercise things that, so it's stimulating the person so that, in my opinion, they're playing the game, they're not in therapy. But by playing the game, they're learning and expanding their movement, so it is therapy. But you have to be very careful with the balance and the design to keep the motivation of that person up. So in my work, I evolved a model based on, it's called ZOOM, Z-O-O-M, which is the zone of optimized motivation. So it's based on a synthesis of different researchers who I'm very keen on. And that's Csikszentmihalyi with the flow side of things. You've got Fisher with the micro-development side of things. You've got Schoen with what's happening now in this situation and what happens afterwards when you reflect on that situation. So the inaction and the on-action situation is by Donald Schoen. And when you look at what's out there to build a theoretical framework, and then you go into the medium you want to work with, like games, with therapy, you should be able to look at it and get lots of potentials from it to be able to work the case, if you like, to educate the next generation. And for me to come here, it's very important, I'm 60 years of age, to come here and talk to youngsters who are researching games but perhaps don't know where to use them. Perhaps they don't know who they're creating games for. And there's a huge potential of not creating for everybody, but creating for a special segment of the community. And it's very powerful to do that and see the results of the work coming back to you, besides money. Helping another human being, so important.
Thank you so much.
Gracias.